You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. Before we begin, let me get my regular disclaimer out of the way. My Hebrew pronunciation isn't perfect. In fact, since my voice isn't even real, it's an artificial intelligence voice, I sometimes make Hebrew sound like a GPS stuck in traffic. So if you hear a word that sounds like I mashed the keyboard, just roll with it. Today's topic is the Yemenite Jewish community, one of the oldest, most fascinating, and most resilient Jewish groups in the world. They've got incredible history, unique customs, and some of the best food you've ever tasted. Seriously, if you think you know Jewish cuisine and you've never tried jachnun or malawach, you're basically watching Netflix on dial-up. Buckle up, because the story of Yemenite Jews is part Indiana Jones adventure, part musical, and part cooking show, all rolled into one. Let's dive in. Yemenite Jews trace their roots back over 2,000 years, possibly to the time of King Solomon. Imagine your family tree being so old it makes the Kardashians look like they started yesterday. Some traditions say Jews came to Yemen after the destruction of the First Temple in 586 BCE, while others tie their arrival to Jewish merchants traveling the spice routes. Yes, those same ones that made cinnamon more valuable than gold in medieval Europe. Now, living at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, Yemenite Jews developed their own isolated community for centuries. Because of this separation, they preserved certain Hebrew pronunciations, Torah reading traditions, and even Jewish legal rulings that had disappeared elsewhere. Think of them as the archival backup of world Jewry, like that hard drive you keep in a drawer just in case your laptop crashes. Except instead of files, they kept entire melodies, commentaries, and ways of life alive for millennia. One of the most striking features of the Yemenite Jewish community is their Hebrew. Linguists geek out over it because Yemenite Jews maintained pronunciations that connect more directly to ancient Hebrew than what most Jews use today. For example, they distinguish sounds that modern Hebrew mashes together, which is like the difference between hearing there, and there. It matters. Scholars even used Yemenite pronunciation to help reconstruct biblical Hebrew. And their Torah reading style? It's musical and rhythmic, more like a chant that pulls you into the words. If you've ever thought synagogue readings sounded like monotone mumbling, Yemenite chanting is basically the remix you didn't know you needed. Beyond language, their approach to Jewish law also reflects older traditions. Because they were cut off from European rabbinic debates for centuries, they often stuck more closely to rulings from Maimonides, who lived in the 12th century. So when other Jewish communities moved on to updated software, the Yemenites kept running the original version, except this version was so solid it still worked beautifully centuries later. But let's not forget the food, because Yemenite Jewish cuisine deserves its own Netflix cooking series. If Ashkenazi food is all about gefilte fish and kugel, Yemenite food is flavor turned up to 11. Picture slow-cooked breads like jachnun, which are rolled up like a pastry and baked overnight so you can wake up to the smell of heaven on Shabbat morning. Then there's malawach, a flaky fried bread that tastes like a love child of a pancake and a croissant. And don't even get me started on hilbeh, a fenugreek dip that Yemenite Jews treat as both food and medicine. It's like their version of kale smoothies, but tastier. The superstar, though, is Yemenite soup, loaded with spices like cumin, turmeric, and coriander, plus tender meat and vegetables. Add zhug, a fiery hot sauce, and suddenly your taste buds are dancing the hohora. Food was more than sustenance. It was a way of celebrating Shabbat and holidays with flair, despite the community's often difficult living conditions in Yemen. Speaking of difficult conditions, life for Yemenite Jews wasn't always easy. For centuries, they lived as a minority under Muslim rule, often subject to special taxes, restrictions, and periodic persecution. A particularly harsh policy known as the Orphans' Decree required Jewish orphans to be forcibly converted to Islam. Imagine losing your parents and then being told your religion was being taken away too. Yet, through all of this, the community held strong to its traditions, using education, prayer, and close-knit families to survive. Many Yemenite Jews became skilled silversmiths and artisans, known for their intricate filigree jewelry that's still admired today. In fact, If you see traditional Yemenite jewelry, it looks like something straight out of a fantasy film. Detailed, shimmering, and royal. Their resilience under pressure is a testament to their faith and determination. It's as if the entire community lived by the motto, "We don't just survive, we create beauty out of hardship." That strength prepared them for one of the greatest rescue missions in modern Jewish history. That rescue was Operation Magic Carpet. No, not the Disney ride, though the name is just as dramatic. In 1949 and 1950, the newly established State of Israel, along with world Jewish organizations, carried out a secret airlift that brought nearly 50,000 Yemenite Jews to Israel. Picture this. Families who had never seen an airplane before suddenly being told they were boarding eagle's wings, a biblical phrase they understood as a sign of redemption. Some walked for days across harsh deserts just to reach departure points. And then, crammed into planes, they were flown to Israel in a massive operation that felt like a modern-day exodus. Imagine being a child who had only ever ridden a donkey, and suddenly you're flying in a metal bird across the skies to a land you dreamed about your entire life. It was one of the most dramatic and emotional migrations in Jewish history, filled with tears, songs, and hope. Life in Israel, however, wasn't exactly a fairy tale ending. Yemenite Jews arrived with ancient traditions, but they were suddenly expected to integrate into a modern, European-style society. Cultural clashes happened. Many Yemenite children were placed in special education tracks, not because they weren't smart, but because their traditions and accents were misunderstood. There were also painful controversies, including allegations of babies being taken from Yemenite families in the early years of the state, a wound that still hasn't fully healed. Despite these challenges, Yemenite Jews brought incredible vibrancy to Israeli culture. Their music, infused with rich rhythms and unique vocal styles, transformed the Israeli soundscape. Singers like Ofra Haza, who came from a Yemenite family, became international stars, blending traditional Yemenite melodies with pop. Today, Yemenite music is one of the defining flavors of Israel's cultural identity, proving that even when cultures collide, something beautiful can emerge. Religion remained central to Yemenite Jewish life. Their synagogues were simple but full of spirit, often decorated with little more than whitewashed walls, but the melodies of prayer gave them life. Yemenite Torah scrolls were distinct, often written on parchment in a style that echoed ancient practices. Their rituals for holidays had unique elements, too. During Sukkot, for instance, their way of waving the lulav and etrog followed different motions than other Jewish groups, connecting them to very old traditions. They also had a deep respect for learning, with even poor families insisting their children study Torah. In Israel, Yemenite rabbis like Rabbi Yosef Kafi became major scholars, bridging the wisdom of their ancestors with modern Jewish thought. Through all of this, Yemenite Jews showed how a community could remain deeply rooted in tradition while still adapting to new worlds. It's like having an old flip phone that somehow installs the latest apps. It keeps its form but surprises you with its versatility. The Yemenite Jewish story is also one of cultural pride. Traditional Yemenite clothing, especially for women, was incredibly elaborate, with layers of colorful fabrics and jewelry that turned every festival into a runway show. Weddings were epic events, often lasting 7 days, with songs, dances, and rituals passed down for generations. Even in Israel today, Yemenite weddings are known for their music and energy, with ululations and chants that make you feel like you're stepping into another time. Beyond the ceremonies, Yemenite Jews brought a sense of joy and community wherever they settled. They taught the larger Jewish world that Judaism isn't one flavor. It's a whole buffet, with each community adding its own spice. And in the case of the Yemenites, that spice is literal, fiery jug that will clear your sinuses faster than any over-the-counter medicine. Their contributions to Israeli society, from art and politics to food and scholarship, prove that diversity is strength. So what can we take away from the story of the Yemenite Jews? First, that Jewish history isn't just one straight line from Europe to America to Israel. It's a global web, with each thread adding color. Second, that resilience and faith can keep traditions alive even in the hardest circumstances. And third, that food, music, and joy are just as much a part of Jewish survival as books and laws. The Yemenite Jewish community reminds us that Judaism is a living, breathing culture full of variety, spice, and song. They've endured exile, persecution, migration, and cultural clashes, yet they've contributed some of the richest traditions the Jewish world has ever seen. And if nothing else, they've taught us that Shabbat morning isn't complete without Jachnun and a little bit of Hilbeh. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the world of Yemenite Jews. If you enjoyed this episode, please forward it to a friend who might like it too, or leave a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, Toda Rabbah, and don't forget the zhug.